Welcome to Millennial Man, the 13th floor, chapter 16, Bitterness, Resentment, and Hate. This is the longest chapter of the book. Very important. Bitterness, resentment, and hate are powerful words that have powerful consequences in our lives. Whether we allow these things to exist in ourselves or have experienced them in others, these terms have a huge impact on our world, our society, and our homes. These attitudes of bitterness, resentment, and hate have been and continue to be extremely damaging. They have been the cause of many failures, much jealousy, violent wars, and the slaughter of innocents throughout time. Bitterness, resentment, and hate are some of the main players in the psychological oppression of all people and the millennial man. Whether we can be accused of self-oppression or we are oppressed by other entities, we all need to take careful and close consideration of these terms and their reality in and around our lives. Do you want to understand why there is so much division among people from different races or cultural backgrounds? The real reasons, and not the media hype. You want to understand why some people seem to be unable to find success and happiness, or the motivation to strive for happiness and success. You will almost certainly understand all these things and the senseless injustice in our society when you understand how bitterness, resentment, and hate plagues our nation, and how corrupt officials and leaders use it as a tool. You will recognize how you yourself have allowed bitterness, resentment, and hate to hinder your life. What did I just say? Yes, you will find that you yourself have fallen victim to one or more of these terms, and it has hindered your life at some point. I know it's much easier to accept your own failures when you can blame someone else for them. Unfortunately, you will never find true success and happiness blaming others. Realizing how bitterness, resentment, and hate have hindered your life is an amazing thing. The beauty of this is that some of you reading this have actually been taught that others are responsible for your inabilities and failures, and some of you actually believe this. When you find out or come to the realization that this isn't true, that knowledge will allow you to work towards success, happiness, and peace. How liberating it is when you come to realize that a lot of failures are caused by bitterness, resentment, and hate within our hearts, minds, and souls, and not by someone or something else. This means you are in control of your own destiny. Now you can overcome failures and finally start finding success and happiness if you choose to let go of bitterness, resentment, and hate. The first form or cause of bitterness, resentment, and hate we should consider is the painful things we were subjected to as we were children growing up into adolescence. These unfortunate realities of abuse, neglect, and lack of love and lack of proper instruction from our guardians has caused a lot of bitterness, resentment, and hate in our lives. Our minds and hearts are plagued with hurt feelings and ill thoughts, and we sometimes want to blame anyone we can for this, even those who aren't responsible. We cannot change what happened to us that has caused us pain. We can, however, realize that we are not alone in being victims of abuse, neglect, or lack of loving instruction. Being a victim does not give us free pass or path to success and happiness, or a license to neglect our responsibilities until we heal. Life goes on and will not wait for us to come out of our self-pity. Life will not wait for you to feel better, and life doesn't feel sorry for you. Excuse me. You will not find a happy and successful life that harbors in itself bitterness, resentment, and hate. At times, we want to feel sorry for ourselves and fill our minds with all kinds of horrible emotions like self-pity, excuses, sadness, anger, etc. Remember, men, these emotions are within our power of control. There are some things that are not in our control, like who our guardians were and what they subjected us to. But emotions are in our own control. Some of us were raised by hateful, resentful, and bitter people. Unfortunately, a lot of times we will have a tendency to pick up these feelings, beliefs, and character traits. We may become just as full of these negative emotions as our parents and guardians. Just like abuse, the cycle will continue if we as millennial men don't wake up and start to consider reality and lead our families and communities out of these hurtful cycles and corrupt beliefs. Bitterness, resentment, and hate are crippling to a body and all aspects of life, to success, to relationships, to your effectiveness, to community, and it's detrimental to any project promoting unity. All too often, jealous, ignorant, bitter, and weak people holler out, racism, or he or she is a racist. They try to get others to back them by stirring the emotions and taking advantage of people's lack of knowledge. They want to gain support in accusations of racism against any successful person who may have a difference of opinion or is of opposing political views. This is simply a blame game. They have nothing else to accuse of, so they use racism. So their own failures and ineffectiveness make them resentful of those who are successful and effective. Way too many people are taking part in these types of things. Some of you have surely seen that oftentimes the person doing the accusing is the one truly guilty of the accusation. This happens all the time on many levels. Unfortunately, these accusers just want their voice heard, even though they have no real beneficial or effective input. Why are these people merely accusers and not true problem solvers? Where I come from, we have a saying, don't talk about it, be about it. I'm sorry to have to come to a conclusion that a lot of people that holler racism actually want division and segregation themselves. I want to make an important point. I am a white male. I've spent many years of my life in poverty and in close proximity with people of color. I don't think of my race as superior to any other. Why is it when I don't like a man because of his character or don't agree with his political or religious belief and he is of color, I am accused of being a racist? This is quite unfair, but happens all the time. I believe this is a version of the blame game. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We are in a time where we should judge a man by the merits of his character and not by the color of his skin." It literally makes me sick to see how these divisive segregationists prey upon the emotional weakness and pain of people who just want a better chance at life. They stir these people into bitterness, resentment, and hate, knowing that as long as people stay full of these things, they never really actually have a chance at true success or peace of heart and mind. So the reality is that those who stir up these emotions are the actual oppressors. This is a very enlightening subject, so as you read, please stay out of your emotions and get into your intellect. I truly want to see us all succeed no matter our race or social status. Some people want to remain divided. These people are segregationists. Obviously, if they want division, they will not teach uniting truths. Some people want freedom and unity, like me. What category are you in? Remember, as you consider this, success isn't always making a lot of money. You cannot want division and find true success and happiness. Anyone who wants division is fueled by bitterness, resentment, and hate. I will give an example of an important issue where bitterness, resentment, or hate has blinded a whole group of people from one of the most important realities we could ever think about, our freedom and system of governance. There are those who feel that our system of governance is corrupt and cannot possibly be good because some of the men who contributed to and helped design the system were slave owners. Not all of them were, but a few were. I make this point as often as I can. Our founding fathers designed the best system ever thought of to allow the common and the poor people to be a part of their own governance and able to reach high successes. This great system may have been beneficial to a certain group or race at the time of its founding, but now it is available to all of us, no matter the race or social status or the amount of money you have. Why would you give up or trash an awesome system because your emotions overrode your intellect? As millennial men, we must be men of emotional maturity and able to be men of thought, not instability. As millennial men, I just said that, excuse me. Whites and blacks fought and died side by side in the Civil War, standing for a just cause, and it is my sincere hope and life's work to see us again stand side by side to overcome these divisive, loudmouth segregationists, whose real agenda is to destroy freedom, unity, and opportunity for all of us. Has there been racism? Yes. Will there continue to be racism? Yes. Lucky for us who want unity is the fact that racism rarely wields the power some make it seem. They are few, they are weak, they are ineffective. Their only real tool is their ability to accuse their opposition and get the media on their side. Another person's belief rarely affects my life and chances of success, unless I allow them to live in my head rent-free, or stir up my emotions to resent, hate, and be bitter, so that I become ineffective. I'm not falling for that. There are many more people who are not racist than are. A lot of people have sacrificed a great deal so that we can be where we are today, of all races. They've done this so all others can live in unity and enjoy the quality and opportunities America has to offer her people. It is pure insanity that these politicians who are truly segregationists will holler racism and point fingers all day long. Often their own districts continue in poverty and moral and economic failure. Segregationists who stir bitterness, resentment, and hate among the races want division. To what extreme? Sometimes it seems as if these voices actually want chaos and destruction. Why would you allow a corrupt entity to stir you to burn down your own neighborhoods and physically fight fellow Americans? Is racism the cause of millions of fatherless children? Is racism the cause of mass aborted babies? Is racism the cause of violent gang shootings and assaults in the inner cities? Is racism the cause of addiction and alcoholism? No, but some of these race baiters try to twist reality to make it seem so, because they want us all to be bitter, resentful, and hateful, so that you will not see clearly that it is a problem of moral standards, psychological oppression in mass, and lack of true leadership. Why, millennial men? There is much at play here when we delve into these very serious issues. The important thing to keep in mind is that we want freedom, unity, and to keep our sovereignty as a nation. Without these things, we will quickly fall under a set of global laws and oppressive governing. Quite possibly, we will suffer injustices like we've never known, ever in this great country, but are quite common in communist and socialist countries. Some actually want people to suffer now for injustices of past generations. Now that is racism. You would come to know what it was. You would come to know what it was. Do you really want the rich and powerful to take the fruits of your labor and the rich resources we enjoy? Our problems currently have nothing to do with racism and everything to do with power and global governance and moral standards. Because of bitterness, resentment, and hate, people of all races are led like lambs to the slaughter by their own emotions and often by their fellow man. People who promote divisive rhetoric and false accusations of racism are themselves racist and use racism as a means of gaining more power or to implement socialist and communist type systems that keep the common poor of no effect. These divisive and hateful people don't really care about the poor and fatherless. That much is crystal clear. They are complaining about and trying to harm the only system of order in the world to have succeeded in giving the common, the poor, and the diverse a chance of success and leadership, all the way to the highest offices of the land. This system has given us all a chance to learn and to teach, a chance to be free from oppression and live peacefully alongside others, even when having differences. Millennial men, I am talking to all of my fellow men who want success, who want unity, who want answers, and who want a full and happy life. Do not allow your emotions to blind you from the truth of these matters. That is the corrupt officials and the big tech media's objective, to keep you from thought. I am by no means denying the fact that there are people who are racist in the world. So what? I'd rather prove them foolish by attaining real success than continuing in failure just to blame them. Too many good people of color and white folks alike gave their time, energy, voice, blood, and lives to the Civil War and the Civil Rights Movement. These people fought for equality, justice, and unity. Are we really going to forget them and stand idle while bitter and angry leaders who are nothing more than hacks use the backs of soldiers and men like King to push divisive rhetoric just to keep themselves relevant and in some semblance of power? Men, please wake up. Please take careful consideration of how bitterness, resentment, and hate are so entirely disruptive and oppressive. This is a perfect example of people being played or oppressed by their own emotions, often at the design of their own vindictive leaders. A lot of these leaders know very well that when men and women are bitter, resentful, and hateful, they are emotionally unstable and can be easily convinced or roused to unjust causes and deceitful political agendas. These leaders who claim to be for the poor and oppressed are really just using them and their unfortunate circumstances to retain their own positions of power. If these leaders are doing these things knowingly or unknowingly, it makes no difference. They should not be allowed to continue in leadership. Unfortunately, they do continue, unquestioned and unchecked. People of all races have a lot of opportunity in our day and age. We have more black millionaires in the United States than at any time in history. More black teachers, more black congressmen and women, business owners, etc. Who are the fools that claim racism is a huge problem or threat? That racism is destroying opportunity for black men and women. Garbage hype media and a few angry and resentful politicians, individuals, and institutions. They push segregation and socialist agendas while ignoring the real causes of failure among black communities, which is too many fatherless children growing up in poverty, in dangerous circumstances, with no real instruction and beneficial teachings. This problem is all over today in the U.S., not just in the inner cities or among black communities, but is a huge problem wherever it exists. In the land of 300 million people, there will obviously be some instances of corruption and racism, at least until all evil is destroyed, which we could hope for one day. Life can be easily wasted away in bitterness, resentment, and hate, if you or I allow it to. Do some people have it easy? Yes. Do some people have it difficult? Sure. Do painful and harmful things happen to all of us? Yes, they do. I'm not disputing the fact that there are some unfair and unjust circumstances at times in life. However, they are not the norm. The biggest ones are the real reasons for our failure: fatherless and leaderless communities. We as a whole still have it better than any other country or at any other time in history. Please consider this question deeply. Why is it so important for these people to keep this type of realization out of the forefront of your mind and heart? Because you might actually come up with real solutions to the problems in your community, or even cause an epidemic of success instead of failures. And in so doing, prove how incompetent these leaders are who claim to be out for your best interests. You may even get their job in the next election. Overcome bitterness, resentment, and hate, and realize these truths. Then you will begin to overcome the oppression, whether it be imposed by yourself or other entities. You will be able to teach others to do so as well. Let us all reach high pinnacles of success together. That is true liberation. Don't believe hype. Consider the agendas. Recognize the psychological games at play. And remember always that struggle equals strength and education. Another area that is important to the issues of bitterness, resentment, and hate is the issue of jealousy of another or another's possession, success, or status. We know some people get money or statuses handed to them. We cannot control that. We can control how we feel about it and our emotional responses. Most successes and statuses are attained by hard work and effort towards goals, with the exception of a few. Millennial men, we can do and become just about anything we want in life. The question is, are you willing to put in the time and effort? Are you willing to sacrifice pleasure in order to attain self-control and success? Are you willing to give up bitterness, resentment, and hate? Can you accept the truth when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient? When we see men who are willing to sacrifice pleasure, put time, effort, heart, and soul into reaching a goal, success, or a leadership position, let us recognize that it is to be applauded, especially when handled justly and responsibly. Even commended, not thought of in a bitter, resentful, or hateful manner. Don't be a hater. We should not by any means allow envy covetousness, or jealousy to corrupt our thinking. Remember, money alone does not mean true success or cause one to be effective automatically. We have covered three main sources of bitterness, resentment, and hate. There are others that stem from more esoteric and religious beliefs taught by the so-called enlightened. We've touched the main ones most of us common and poor deal with on a regular basis. 1. Physical, mental, and psychological abuse and lack of love and proper education as a youth. 2. Race relations and emotional weaknesses and frustration. People and institutions using race to incite emotional anguish to the point of destructive and divisive behavior. 3. Jealousy of another's success, status, and happiness. Millennial men, if we cannot address these real and difficult issues in a professional, intellectual manner, we will continue to harm each other and crumble as a united and free people. To allow our emotions to dictate what we take part in and what we feel on a regular basis will continue to harm us and crumble us as a united and free people. Men, regardless of your race, social status, history, or what you were subjected to as a child, you have an opportunity to contribute a great deal to society and help your fellow man in this generation and generations to come in the future. Why would you pass that up? Native, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern, etc. America is still the greatest land in history with the greatest system of governance ever created by man. Would you like to give that up and go backwards? We cannot allow our system to be overcome by other systems that have already been proven to be failures in the past. Please don't let bitterness, resentment, and hate blind your rational mind and lead you down that path. Make your leaders answer why they've allowed what they have. If you don't question them or hold them accountable, and if we don't do our duty, they will continue to act accordingly.